The alarm blared in the lunar laboratory, its harsh sound echoing off the white walls. Greg Harrison looked up from his work, confused. The facility never had drills at this hour. Through the dome-shaped window, he could see Earth hanging in, the black sky, beautiful and blue. Security breach in Sector 7, the automated system announced. All personnel evacuate immediately. Greg quickly saved his work on the faster-than-light drive. After 5 years of research, he was finally close to a breakthrough. He wasn't about to lose his data now. The laboratory door slid open. Greg expected to see his colleagues rushing in. Instead, 3 tall figures stood in the doorway. They weren't human. Their skin was pale blue, their limbs too long, their eyes too large. What? Greg backed away. Who are you? The aliens didn't speak. One pointed a strange device at him. A flash of light filled the room, and Greg felt his body freeze. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. He could only watch as the aliens approached. Human, Greg Harrison, one of them finally spoke, its voice oddly flat. Your work on dimensional physics has been noted. You will come with us. Greg wanted to protest, to fight, to run, but his body refused to obey. The aliens lifted him easily, carrying him away from his life's work. Navy Commander Allison Murphy stood on the deck of the USS Liberty, watching the night sky over the Pacific Ocean. It was her first command, and she took night watch more often than required. She loved the peace of the ocean at night. That peace was broken when the sky lit up with strange moving lights. Command, are there any scheduled launches tonight? She asked through her radio. Negative, Commander, came the reply. What are you seeing? Multiple objects moving in formation. Allison raised her binoculars. The objects were huge, bigger than any human ship. Their surfaces reflected the moonlight in ways that seemed unnatural. I think you need to alert Spacecom. These aren't ours. Within hours, similar reports came in from around the world. Giant ships appeared over major cities: New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Cairo. Earth's combined military forces scrambled jets, but the alien vessels easily avoided all attempts at contact or confrontation. Global communications networks, suddenly, activated with a message broadcast in all languages. People of Earth, we are the Galactic Conclave, an alliance of civilizations that maintains order in this sector of the galaxy. For centuries, we have observed your development. Recent advancements in your technology have forced us to make direct contact. In the White House Situation Room, President Sam Wilson watched the broadcast with his advisors. The alien on the screen had 4 eyes and gray skin that looked like stone. This is unprecedented, the Secretary of Defense said. We have no protocol for this. We have to respond, Wilson said. Open diplomatic channels. Before they could act, the message continued. Your species has shown remarkable progress, but also concerning behaviors. Your resource consumption, your weapons development, and your internal conflicts make you unsuitable for joining the galactic community at this time. The alien paused, all 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The Conclave has ruled. Humanity is deemed evolutionarily immature. You are sentenced to isolation until you demonstrate the stability required for peaceful coexistence. On the lunar base, Director Pete Morgan watched in horror as strange energy fields began to form around the perimeter. The fields merged into walls that blocked all signals to Earth. What's happening? Asked his assistant. They're cutting us off, Morgan replied. Get me any connection to Earth now. But it was too late. All communications were dead. In deep space, Greg Harrison awoke in a strange room. The walls pulsed with soft light. He was lying on something that wasn't quite a bed, but shaped itself to support his body. The human is conscious, a voice said. Greg turned to see one of the blue aliens, watching him. Behind it stood a taller being with multiple limbs and a face that seemed to shift and change as Greg looked at it. Why am I here? Greg demanded. You were developing technology that would have allowed your kind to break the isolation barrier, the blue alien explained. The Conclave decided to study you, to understand how your primitive species came so close to discovering principles that took our civilizations millennia to master. What isolation barrier? Greg asked. The shifting-faced alien gestured and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. Greg saw the solar system, with Earth at its center. Then he watched as a bubble of energy expanded outward, enveloping all the planets, the asteroid belt, and stopping just beyond Pluto's orbit. Your species is now contained, the alien said. For your own good, and for the good of the galaxy. Back on Earth, chaos ruled. The alien ships remained in orbit, silent sentinels watching over humanity's prison. Governments collapsed and reformed. Panic gave way to anger, then to determination. 6 months after the Conclave's judgment, Commander Allison Murphy stood before the newly formed United Earth Council. The aliens have established automated platforms at key points throughout the solar system, she reported. Any vessel approaching these barriers is disabled or destroyed. We've lost 17 ships testing their defenses. And there's no way through? Asked Counselor Rivera. Not yet, Murphy said. But we've recovered fragments of their technology from destroyed Sentinel platforms. Our scientists are studying them. How long until we can break free? Another counselor asked. Murphy looked at the faces around her, seeing the same determination she felt. The aliens said we're trapped for 10,000 years, she replied. I say we prove them wrong in less than 100. They think we're primitive? Let's show them what happens when you cage humans. In the back of the room, a scientist named Bill Foster nodded silently. In his pocket was a data chip containing information from Greg Harrison's research. Before the lunar lab was cut off, Harrison had managed to transmit a partial backup of his findings. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had united humanity against a common enemy, and they had taken one of Earth's brightest minds, giving him direct access to their advanced technology. The sentence was exile, but for humanity, it was just the beginning. 100 years had passed since the exile. Earth and its solar system had changed. Where once nations fought each other, now a single government united all humans. The Solar Federation, they called it. Necessity had forced cooperation. Captain Frank Miller stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, the most advanced ship humanity had ever built. It was small compared to the alien vessels that had imprisoned Earth, but it represented humanity's greatest achievement, a ship designed to pierce the dimensional barrier. All systems ready, Captain, said his second-in-command, Lisa Chen. Her face showed a mix of fear and excitement. Everyone on the crew felt the same. If they failed, they would die. If they succeeded, they would be the first humans to escape in a century. Begin the sequence, Frank ordered. The ship hummed as its special engines powered up. Dr. Alan Wong, the chief scientist, monitored the readings closely. The barrier is weakening at coordinates 227 Mark IV, Alan reported. It's just as we predicted. The alien's prison has a flaw. Frank nodded. All hands prepare for breakthrough. This might get rough. The Pathfinder wasn't alone. 4 other ships followed in tight formation. The Horizon, the Venture, the Pioneer, and the Discovery. Together, they carried 2,000 colonists, scientists, engineers, soldiers, farmers. Everything needed to establish a new home beyond the barrier. Barrier approaching in 30 seconds, Lisa announced. On the main screen, the edge of their prison was visible, a shimmering wall of energy that surrounded the entire solar system. For a century, nothing had passed through it in either direction. 20 seconds. Frank thought of Earth, beautiful and blue. He might never see it again. 10 seconds. The ship began to shake. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breach. The universe seemed to twist around them. The ship groaned like a living thing in pain. Several crew members cried out. Frank gripped his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. Then suddenly, everything was calm. Status report, Frank demanded. Alan looked up from his station, his face pale but his eyes bright with wonder. We're through, Captain. We've escaped. The journey to their new home took months. They traveled far, avoiding any sign of alien civilizations. Finally, they found it, a planet with blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds. It reminded them of Earth, but it was untouched by human hands. They named it Haven. 5 years later, Susan Carter walked through the settlement that had grown into a small town. Buildings made of local stone and wood lined neat streets. Fields of crops surrounded the community. Children born on Haven played in a park at the center of town. At 25, Susan was the youngest lead engineer in the colony. Her grandmother had been one of the original colonists, a brilliant physicist who helped design the ships that brought them here. "Good morning, Susan," called Ben Martinez, the colony's doctor. "Big day today." Susan nodded, smiling. "If it works, it changes everything." She continued to the research facility at the edge of town. Inside, her team was already at work on the device they called the Watcher, a machine designed to monitor the dimensional barrier around Earth's solar system from afar. "Any change?" Susan asked as she entered the lab. "Nothing yet," replied Kyle Jackson, her assistant. "But the power levels are stable. We should have a clear picture soon." The Watcher was Susan's design, based on her study of the alien technology they had observed during their escape. If it worked, they could potentially find more weaknesses in the barrier, maybe even a way to free Earth. The machine hummed to life. Holographic displays showed complex patterns of energy. "There it is," Susan said, pointing to a specific pattern. "That's the barrier." The team watched in silence as data streamed in. Then a warning sound came from the machine. "What's happening?" Kyle asked. Susan studied the readings. "The barrier is changing. The aliens are reinforcing it. They must have detected our escape." The implications were clear. The path they had used was now closed. Haven was truly alone. Back in the solar system, the humans left behind had not been idle. The Solar Federation had spread throughout their prison, building massive space stations and colonies on every habitable surface. On Mars, inside the largest research dome, scientist Paul Rivera made the final adjustments to his communication. For years he had theorized that certain frequencies might penetrate the dimensional barrier without alerting the alien sentinels. "Power at maximum," said his colleague, Maya Foster. "Ready when you are." Paul took a deep breath and activated the array. The room filled with the hum of powerful transmitters. "Sending test signal now," Maya reported. They waited in tense silence. According to their calculations, if anyone beyond the barrier was listening with the right equipment, they would hear the signal. "Nothing yet," Paul said after several minutes. "Let's try adjusting the receiver suddenly crackled to life. At first it was just static. Then, clear as day, they heard a voice. "This is Haven Colony. If anyone can hear this, respond on this frequency." Repeat, "This is Haven Colony." Paul and Maya stared at each other in shock. "We're not alone," Paul whispered. "Some of us escaped." The voice continued, giving coordinates and identification codes. Then it cut off abruptly. The connection had been brief, just 30 seconds. But it changed everything. "Alert the Federation Council," Paul told Maya. Tell them we have brothers and sisters among the stars." On Haven, Susan stared at her receiver in disbelief. For just a moment, they had connected with Mars. After 100 years, the two branches of humanity had found each other. Captain Frank Miller, now gray-haired and serving as the colony's leader, listened to the recording of the brief transmission. "What does this mean?" asked one of the colony council members. "It means we're not alone in our fight," Frank replied. "Earth hasn't given up, and now we can coordinate." He looked at Susan. "Can you establish the connection again?" She nodded slowly. "Not right away, the aliens might be monitoring. But yes, given time, we can talk to Earth again." "Good," Frank said. "Because it's time for the next phase. We've hidden long enough. Now we start building our strength." He walked to the window and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, the aliens who had imprisoned humanity went about their lives believing their problem was solved. "They have no idea what's coming," he said softly. 300 years had passed since humanity's exile. Haven Colony was no longer just a single settlement on a distant planet. It had grown into a network of worlds, hidden from the galactic conclave's watching eyes. Their ships moved through the darkness between stars, always careful, always secret. Jack O'Connor adjusted the alien mask covering his face. The synthetic skin felt strange, but it made him look exactly like a Drell, one of the minor species in the conclave. His eyes, normally bright blue, now appeared yellow with vertical pupils. His mission was simple but dangerous. Infiltrate the conclave space station, gather intelligence, and leave without being discovered. Remember, you have 8 hours before the DNA mask fails, said Kate Miller through the hidden earpiece. She was his handler, great-granddaughter of the legendary Captain Frank Miller who had led the original escape from Earth. I'll be in and out in 6, Jack promised. He took a deep breath and stepped off his small cloaked ship onto the bustling alien station. The station was enormous, a city in space where a dozen different species lived and worked. The conclave headquarters took up the central section, a massive structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. Jack moved through the crowds confidently, his stolen identity codes giving him access to the outer sections. As he approached a security checkpoint, a tall Zorian guard looked down at him. The Zorians had been the ones who led the judgment against humanity 3 centuries ago. Their blue skin and forearms made them instantly recognizable. Purpose? The guard asked, in the common language of the conclave. Records maintenance, Jack replied, showing his forged credentials. Section 12B. The guard studied the credentials, then nodded. Proceed. Jack moved past, fighting to keep his face neutral. His heart was pounding. Every Zorian he saw reminded him of the recordings from Earth's exile, the smug faces of the aliens who had imprisoned his species. Inside the records facility, Jack quickly located an empty terminal. He plugged in a small device that Haven's tech experts had created. It began copying data at an incredible speed, breaking through the conclave's security systems. While it worked, Jack browsed the public information available. What he found surprised him. News reports showed growing unrest within the conclave. Several species were openly questioning the leadership of the Zorians. There were protests on multiple worlds. One report caught his attention. Ethical Review Committee questions solar quarantine. Jack quickly read the article. A group within the conclave was actually challenging the morality of keeping humans imprisoned. They argued that 300 years was long enough to reassess humanity's status. The copying device beeped softly, indicating it had finished. Jack pocketed it and prepared to leave. That's when he noticed a Zorian official staring at him from across the room. You, Drell. Come here, the Zorian called. Jack's hand moved to the hidden weapon under his coat. If he had to fight his way out, the mission would be compromised, but he might not have a choice. Before he could decide, another alarm sounded. The station's main screens all changed to show an emergency announcement. An accident in the lower levels required immediate evacuation of non-essential personnel. In the confusion, Jack slipped away, making his way back to his ship. Once aboard, he removed the uncomfortable mask and set course for the rendezvous point. I got more than we expected, he told Kate over the secure communication channel. The conclave is fracturing from within. Some of them are actually taking our side. Meanwhile, in the solar system, humanity had transformed their prison into a fortress. The Solar Federation now controlled every planet, moon, and asteroid. Their technology had advanced beyond what even the conclave might expect. On a massive space station orbiting Jupiter, Chief Engineer Laura Winters supervised the final assembly of the largest machine ever built by human hands. The Archway, they called it, a device designed to tear a permanent hole in the dimensional barrier. Power levels are stable, reported her assistant, Ryan Cooper. The simulation shows a 92% chance of success. Laura nodded, but her expression remained serious. And an 8% chance the feedback destroys this entire station and everyone on it. The Federation Council says it's worth the risk, Ryan said. 300 years is long enough. Laura touched the control panel, bringing the massive generators online. The archway was a ring of metal and energy 1 kilometer across. Building it had taken 50 years and resources from throughout the solar system. Begin the power-up sequence, she ordered, Notify all ships to maintain safe distance. As the archway hummed to life, Laura thought about what might be waiting beyond the barrier. Was Earth alone in its rebellion? Or were there other humans out there, fighting in their own way? On Haven, Daniel Hayes stood before the colony's leadership, council. At 40, he was the youngest military commander in Haven's history, but his strategic brilliance was unquestioned. The time for hiding is over, he told the assembled leaders. For 3 centuries, we've been building our strength in secret. We now have bases on 12 planets across 8 star systems. Our fleet includes over 200 warships. We've infiltrated conclave worlds and gathered critical intelligence. He activated a holographic display showing the conclave's territory and the growing rifts within it. The aliens who exiled us are facing their own internal problems. Several member species are questioning the Zorians' leadership. The ethical debate about our quarantine has reached their highest levels. An older council member spoke up. Are you suggesting we reveal ourselves? That would be suicide. Daniel shook his head. Not suicide. Revolution. We've been monitoring communications from the solar system. They're about to attempt a breakthrough from their side. When they do, we strike from ours. He changed the display to show a complex battle plan, a 2-front war. While the Zorians are focused on Earth's breakout, we launch targeted strikes against their key military installations, not to destroy the conclave, but to force them to recognize us as equals. The council chambers erupted in heated debate. Some feared destruction, others thirsted for revenge. Daniel waited patiently for them to finish. Finally, the council leader, Barbara Lee, raised her hand for silence. Our ancestors didn't escape Earth just to hide forever, she said. They came here to build strength for this very moment. I say, we vote. One by one, the council members cast their votes. The result was clear. The time for resistance had come. Daniel left the chamber and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, Earth was preparing its own breakout. Get me a secure channel to Solar Federation, he told his aide. It's time they knew they weren't fighting alone. 500 years after humanity's exile began, the day of rebellion arrived. Commander Nicole Bennett stood on the bridge of the Defiance, the Solar Federation's newest and most powerful warship. Through the view screen, she watched as the archway powered up, its massive ring structure pulsing with blue energy. All ships report ready, Commander, said her first officer, John Kelly. The fleet is in position. Nicole nodded. 100 warships surrounded the archway, ready to push through, the moment the breach was created. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. Status of the barrier sensors? She asked. The alien sentinels are on their normal patrol routes, replied the tactical officer. They haven't detected anything unusual yet. Nicole took a deep breath. Millions of lives depended on what happened in the next few minutes. 5 centuries of planning, building, and waiting had led to this moment. Signal the archway control. Begin the breach sequence. On the space station controlling the archway, Laura Winters gave the final command. The enormous machine drew power from 3 Jupiter-orbiting power stations, channeling it into focused beams that struck the dimensional barrier at precisely calculated points. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, a tear appeared. In the fabric of space itself, it widened, forming a swirling vortex at the center of the archway. Breach stable, Laura announced over the fleet-wide channel. Pathway established. Nicole didn't hesitate. All ships move forward. Formation Alpha. The Defiance led the way, accelerating toward the breach. As they approached, the alien Sentinel platforms finally detected the disturbance. They turned, weapons powering up, but they were too late. The human fleet was already moving at full speed. The sensation of passing through the breach was strange, a moment of disorientation, a flash of colors no human eye had seen before, then sudden clarity, as they emerged on the other side. For the first time in 5 centuries, humans had left their prison. We're through, John shouted. The bridge crew cheered, but their celebration was short-lived. Waiting for them were 50 Zorian warships, massive vessels bristling with weapons. They knew we were coming, Nicole realized. Defensive positions, all ships prepare for combat. Across the galaxy, at that exact moment, Eric Wells activated Haven's attack plan. On 12 different conclave worlds, human agents who had spent years infiltrating alien society suddenly revealed themselves, striking at key military and communication installations. On the conclave homeworld, Eric personally led the most critical mission. Disguised as Zorian officials, his team had penetrated the Central Defense Headquarters. "Charges set," reported his second-in-command, Lisa Park. "We have 5 minutes." Eric nodded. "Activate the jamming devices now." Throughout the building, small devices came to life, blocking all communications with the outside. The Zorians inside looked confused, checking their equipment, not yet realizing what was happening. "Let's move to Phase 2, Eric ordered. The team made their way to the central control room. When they burst through the doors, the Zorian commanders looked up in shock. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded the highest-ranking officer. Eric's removed his disguise, revealing his human face. "This is a message from humanity. We reject your judgment. We reject your prison. Today, the exile ends." The Zorians reached for weapons, but Eric's team was faster. Stun weapons fired, dropping the alien commanders where they stood. "Take control of the defense grid," Eric ordered. "Shut down their automated responses." As his team worked, Eric activated a communication device. "Haven Command, this is Strike Team Alpha. Defense headquarters secured. Beginning system override." In deep space, Admiral Kevin Patterson commanded Haven's main battle fleet. 200 ships hidden for centuries now emerged from their secret bases and stealth fields. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said his tactical officer. "Excellent," Kevin replied. "Set course for the Proxima Centauri system. That's where the Solar Federation will be emerging. Let's make sure our Earth cousins don't have to fight alone." The Haven fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, using technology reverse-engineered from captured conclave ships. They had one advantage the Zorians didn't expect. Humans had studied the dimensional barrier physics for centuries, developing weapons that could manipulate the same energy fields. When they arrived at Proxima Centauri, the battle was already raging. The Solar Federation fleet was surrounded, fighting desperately against the larger Zorian forces. "All ships attack pattern Omega," Kevin ordered. "Target the Zorian flagship first." Haven's fleet struck from behind, catching the Zorians completely by surprise. The first volley of dimensional weapons tore through the alien shields as if they weren't there. On the Defiance, Nicole Bennett was fighting a losing battle. 3 of her ships had already been destroyed, and the rest were taking heavy damage. "Shields down to 30%, John reported. "We can't hold out much longer." Suddenly, new ships appeared on their sensors, attacking the Zorians from behind. "Who is that?" Nicole demanded. The communication officer's eyes widened. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission. It's in English." "Put it through," Nicole ordered. A human face appeared on the screen, a man in an unfamiliar uniform. "This is Admiral Kevin Patterson of the Haven Fleet. Sorry we're late to the party, cousins. We thought you could use some help." General Maria Diaz commanded the Haven ground forces that were now landing on key conclave worlds. On the planet Vortis, she led her troops toward the main communication relay that connected the entire conclave network. "Remember, minimal casualties," she ordered over the tactical channel. "We're here to demonstrate our power, not to slaughter." The alien defenders were in disarray, their command structure disrupted by Eric's team. Still, they fought back, forcing Maria's soldiers to advance carefully through the complex. "General, we've reached the main control room," reported one of her squad leaders. "Good. Activate the message beacon." Across all conclave worlds, on every communication channel, the same message began to play. "Attention, citizens of the Galactic Conclave. We are humanity, the species you exiled 500 years ago. Today we reclaim our freedom. We do not seek war or conquest. We seek recognition and equality. The time of judgment is over. The time for dialogue begins." In the Proxima Centauri system, the combined fleets of Earth and Haven had turned the tide. The Zorian ships were retreating, their formations broken. Nicole Bennett and Kevin Patterson stood together on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as the last enemy vessels fled. 500 years, Nicole said quietly. 500 years of imprisonment, and now we're free. Kevin nodded. Not just free, victorious. On the main screen, they could see the remaining Conclave ships sending out peace signals. The message was clear. The mighty Conclave, for the first time in its history, was asking for terms. 1,000 years had passed since humanity's exile. The galaxy looked very different now. Where once the Galactic Conclave had ruled with unquestioned authority, a new organization called the Interstellar Alliance brought together all spacefaring species as equals. William Chen walked through the grand hall of the Alliance headquarters. The massive building floated in space, a neutral ground where representatives from 100 different worlds could meet. As High Chancellor, William held the highest office in the galaxy. Not bad for a species that had once been caged like animals, he thought. The meeting chamber ahead was filled with delegates from across the stars. Humans sat alongside the very aliens who had once imprisoned them. Even the Zorians were there, though they no longer commanded the respect they once had. Chancellor Chen greeted a young Zorian delegate as William passed. My students at the Academy have been studying your speech on dimensional physics. Your people's understanding of the barrier technology is remarkable. William nodded politely. It was still strange to see Zorians showing respect to humans, but times had changed. The former masters of the galaxy now looked to humans for guidance in many fields. The next class at the Academy begins next month, William said. We have spots reserved for Zorian students as always. The delegate bowed gratefully. Many young Zorians now studied at human universities. They were fascinated by the species that had overcome their ancestors' judgment. William continued to the central podium where Sofia Rodriguez, the Solar Federation's scientific director, was waiting. Together, they would activate the most ambitious project in galactic history. Is everything ready? He asked. Sofia nodded. All systems are online. Network nodes are in place around every member world. The chamber quieted as William stepped up to speak. Representatives of the Alliance, he began. 1,000 years ago today, humanity was judged unworthy and exiled from the galactic community. Today, we complete our journey from prisoners to partners. He gestured to the holographic display showing thousands of points of light connecting worlds across the galaxy. The Ascension Network will link all our worlds, allowing instant travel and communication across the stars. Technology born from the very barrier that once imprisoned us will now unite us all. William and Sophia placed their hands on the activation crystal. Energy flowed, and across the galaxy, thousands of transportation gates came online simultaneously. The network is active, Sophia announced. The chamber erupted in applause. Later that evening, William stood at the observation window of his private office, looking out at the stars. Behind him, the door opened as Linda Harrison entered. She was the great-great-great-granddaughter of Greg Harrison, the physicist kidnapped from Lunar Base 5 centuries earlier. Quite a day, she said, joining him at the window. William nodded. Your ancestor would be proud. His work on dimensional physics laid the foundation for everything we've accomplished. Linda smiled. The Zorians made a terrible mistake when they took him. They gave him direct access to their technology. He spent the rest of his life studying it and passing that knowledge to his children. The greatest irony, William agreed. They tried to imprison us, but instead they gave us the keys to the kingdom. Below them, the first ships were using the new network, disappearing from one point in space and instantly appearing at another, thousands of light years away. The Zorian who spoke to me today, William said. He called me master in their language. I corrected him, of course. Old habits die hard for some of them, Linda replied. William shook his head. We didn't fight for freedom just to become new masters. We fought to build something better. He turned from the window to look at the Alliance Charter displayed on his wall. The first line read, All sentient species are born equal in rights and dignity. Humanity returned not as conquerors but as teachers, William said. That's the true victory. Outside, the stars shone in a galaxy forever changed by the species that refused to accept its chains.